Testing. Thank you. Wow, great turnout. Good morning. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Roxy Morrison, and I was asked to be the chair of our search committee for the Director of Outreach and Assimilation. And as for those of you who were here at our congregational meeting, I told you I thought it was one of the most exciting times in our church history. We have had a wonderful time as a search committee, and God has blessed this effort in ways that we can't even describe. I mean, really, things have fallen into place in ways that we never, ever would have imagined. So this morning, you've come to learn a little bit more about this process that we've been through and to get to know Andy and Andrea a little bit better and their family. Cody's going to try to find a couple more stools, so we're going to go ahead and get started because we don't have as much time maybe as I'd like to. And so we're going to move up on the stage, and I'm going to ask Andy to come up with me and Andrea and the children, and I'm just going to have them introduce themselves. And I believe the babysitting grandparents are awaiting the children in the back. So they will also be introduced during second service. I believe they'll talk a little bit there too as well. So just a quick introduction, Andy.
There we go, I bet. Hey, well, good morning, Central. It is just awesome to be with you all weekend long. It's been great to get to know a lot of people here, to get to know your staff, and just to see what Central's all about and the awesome vision you have and the great ministry you're doing. I don't think my son's going to last too much longer, so without further ado, here's my family. This is my wife, Andrea. We've been married for 7 years. We met at Simpson College, and Andrea is a math teacher. Currently at Oostburg High School, and she also is a math teacher for 3 years in New Jersey, and before that she was a year in Clinton, Iowa after college. We have 2 wonderful kids. This is Annalisa right here. She is 5. She has her dance recital next weekend, so she's very excited about that. She loves dance, she loves singing, she loves all that stuff. She did basketball for the first time this year. And then this little guy right here, this is Daniel. I think somebody had me list our kids' hobbies, and I said Daniel's hobbies were getting into things he shouldn't, breaking pieces of technology, and making trips to the emergency room. And that's all fairly accurate. He puts the boy in boy, let me tell you, but he is a fun guy, and apparently he wants to talk too. So again, thank you guys for having us, and if you guys want to go back to Grandma and Grandpa, you can.
We're sorry they ran in church. They really like Grandma.
There we go.
I'm not sure
All right, we're going to have a seat up here, make it a little more casual. We have had a really great time getting to know this family in the last 24 hours or so, and they've spent some time with various groups in the church yesterday, and we learned a lot about both Andrea and Andrea. So I'm going to ask them some questions, and that will help you to get to know them as well. We'll kind of do it like an interview, and if there's time, we may take a couple questions from you, okay? So Andy, can you share with us a little bit about your personal testimony and the experience that you had of God calling you into ministry?
Yeah, I grew up in Sioux City, and again, that's in Iowa, not South Dakota. Central Iowa, you don't always have your geography too straight on what's on that other part of the state over there. And I grew up in a place called Morningside Reformed Church. Some of you that follow the denomination, Dr. Lou Lotz was my pastor growing up as a kid, and my dad was on staff for a number of years, part-time, as their worship and creative arts guru guy. My dad works for Mid-American Energy. He's a facilities manager for them. My mom runs a daycare in their home, and they're both achingly close to retirement, and we'll tell you all about that if you meet them later. I think even maybe more so than Pastor Don is. growing up as a kid, I was always in church. I was always around all of that stuff. And I was the kid who knew all the Bible trivia answers, who could find your verse and could do all that stuff. But it really wasn't until I went to summer camp after my 5th grade year of school that it really all clicked. And it was there at a summer camp in Okoboji that a counselor really introduced me for the first time to the saving grace of Jesus Christ. And introduced me that, hey, God himself came to earth, took on the flesh of humanity and suffered and died for our sins. And that was huge. I had never gotten that. And that was the first time I fully surrendered my life over to Christ. And what an amazing experience. And for a while in my life, that was this moment that really fueled me and guided me where I was going. But when I got to high school, some things changed in my life, and who I was hanging around with and what my priorities were kind of changed. And I got really caught up into trying to be popular, trying to be accepted, trying to be all those things that so often are problems when we're teenagers. And that led me to make a lot of bad decisions in my life in high school. I was still, in essence, the church kid. Hank Baker's son, the music guy, and the bell choir guy, and I was in all these groups of church. I was leading worship, doing all these things, but it wasn't here. And in reality, my life had gone really astray, and I got into the wrong group. I got into alcohol. I really, really went the wrong direction in my life. And really a turning point in my life, amidst all of this, was one Sunday I was supposed to help lead worship that morning, and instead the night before I had gone out and made a lot of bad decisions and had come home in not the greatest shape, and I had actually had to crawl into my bathroom downstairs that morning, and I'm in the shower in my clothes because I wasn't even smart enough that morning to take them off. And I remember very vividly God saying, "What are you doing? Who are you? You're not who I made you to be. I've made you to be my masterpiece. I have made you to be my servant. What is this? Where are you going with your life?" And that was huge. Maybe next to that moment of salvation, that was the next huge thing for me, was to realize, hey, this isn't my life. This is God's life. I've got to make some big changes. I've got to get this sin. I've got to get this pride, all these things out of my life and really change. So I really recommitted my life to Christ. And it was later on, after my first year of college, I didn't start at Simpson College. I started at another school. I thought I was going to be president of the United States, okay? That was my goal. Modest goal, I know. When you grow up with Bill Clinton as your president, it's pretty easy to say, hey, I can do better than that. So that was my goal in life, is I'm going to be better than Bill Clinton. I know. I set very high goals for myself, and so I go to college, and that's what I'm going to do. And I went to a really prestigious private school, and just for academic reasons. And what I discovered was how far so many people that I was going to school were from God. In fact, there was a hatred towards God. People were wondering, why would I throw my life away and believe in God? And I say it's one of the only reasons I ever made a friend there or talked to anybody there was that I had the only Bible on campus. I swear to you, I had about the only Bible on campus. And so when somebody had a philosophy class, a religion class, literature class where they needed the Bible, I had the Bible. And when I saw that, it was such a challenge. And it hurt me to see so many people like me, my age, saying, I don't want anything to do with God. I want to go a different direction. And it was really then that God moved in my heart and said, it's time to serve. You don't like this, it bothers you, then serve me with your whole life vocationally and help people not to be in this situation in their life. And that's what led me to switch schools, go to Simpson College, and end up going to seminary. And that was really, a huge call moment for me.
Thank you. Andrea, would you like to give us a little bit of information about your testimony, how you came to be
I want to start by saying that I knew what I was kind of getting into when I married Andy, because I knew he wanted to be a pastor, but I never knew I got to stand up in front of church people that I haven't met yet and tell about myself. So hello, I'll just pretend that you are high schoolers and I'm teaching you a math lesson and we'll all be good.
Please don't teach.
A squared plus B squared equals
I don't
C
like
squared.
math, so.
Okay. And he doesn't. I don't know how he, I think it's so that I do the math and then he's good. But anyway, I grew up in a Christian home, like I said, in Jefferson, Iowa. And we went to church every Sunday and Sunday school and church camp and all those things. And it was actually at church camp. I went to the Presbyterian camp in Okoboji that I did accept Jesus for the first time. And throughout high school, I was involved in youth groups, and in college, I was involved in things, and it's just kind of been a continual journey. Not an exciting story, but yet it's just been a constant walk with Him. So,
like many of us here, sure. Andy, we talked a little bit yesterday about your role currently in leading youth ministry in the church that you're in, and I'd asked you a question about how do you make that transition from youth ministry into a director of outreach and assimilation outside of youth ministry. Can you talk about your philosophy on how those two connect? And
Yeah, I think in a lot of ways it's kind of a natural progression. Where we've gone over the last 5 years at Hingham with our Blast ministry has been moving more away from me being the totally hands-on guy to me being more of a director of what we're doing. We're to the point now I've got 2 staff people under me. I have an assistant youth director. We have a youth praise and worship director. And getting more to the point that I'm directing people in what we're doing. And one of my big focuses has been and continues to be the outreach and evangelism side of the page. We've seen tremendous growth, and I've loved that. And I've loved the shift that we've made to me being more of the leader of leaders and in being the vision caster for what we're doing as a ministry. So in a way, even though I'm very so much hands-on with youth, even though I'm very so much teaching youth on a regular basis, I've already kind of made that move of being a leader of leaders and being the vision sort of guy. So in that way, it's kind of a natural progression. And it's a natural progression, too. And, I started in my life working with youth because that was the age group I felt kind of comfortable talking with and working with and reaching, and I thought I was equipped with. As I've grown a little older and, this is scary to say, but matured a little bit. That's kind of disappointing to say, actually. It's become easier to work with adults and to minister to them, and I think it really is that time in my life where it's time to take some of the things that we've been doing with youth and been teaching to youth and been helping them with and move to doing that with adults. And the reality is, let's be honest, we as adults, we don't want to be compared to a teenager, but we're not that different, are we? I mean, we've got a lot of the same worries. How do I fit in at work? How am I being successful? Am I achieving what I want to in life? We have a lot of those same questions, and so I think it's a natural progression to move to working with adults. And really what has moved me in ministry from day one, you've heard my story, is seeing people reached and having the opportunity to do that, as the full-time emphasis. That's pretty amazing. And to help reach a community for God, I mean, is there a better honor? I mean, is there a greater thing to be asked to do than to say, hey, I want you to come, help train our people, help lead our people, and go into this community and help reach it? I mean, that's an amazing thing to have God moving you to do. So that's exciting.
So when you think about evangelism and the word evangelism and what that means if you were to come here, what are some of the basic things you would do? Where would you start? How do you see that ministry growing and evolving at Central Reformed?
I think it starts first and foremost with visioning. It starts first and foremost with getting people into rooms, getting people into groups, and really talking about, what's our vision? What do we want to see happen? And then it progresses into, what's going on in our community? What are the needs of our community? What are the ways we can start serving our community? And it becomes a process out of that. We get the vision. We get people buying into the vision. We get an idea of what our community needs. And then one of the biggest things is we start getting people to help do the work. I'm one guy, and the people I know in this community are the people sitting in this room right now. I don't have the relationships, I don't have the connections with the people in the community, but guess who does? You do. And that's a lot of what evangelism looks like. It's the people like me who have the education, who have the experience, who are nerdy and read all the books, sitting down with the people who are real, who are in the community, who are working with people, and helping them to do outreach. And I think you'd be surprised, it's not always about teaching you the words to say. It's about just teaching you how to shine and maybe making you realize you're already doing a lot of the right things. It's just time to give God more of that. So, it's a long-term process, and it starts with that visioning. It starts with that finding the needs, and then it becomes really starting to equip people and finding other ways in the church to really start opening those doors, getting out into the community and reaching people from God, modeling Acts and being out there and just seeing that bounty that God brings in.
I'm going to ask you a question that relates more to the assimilation part of it. And, the position is outreach and assimilation. And you made some comments yesterday that I thought were really impressed me when we were talking about how do you assimilate people and what's the importance of that in relationship to outreach and evangelism.
That's one of the awesome things you get to do. That's the other side of the Great Commission, really. We're told to go out and to make disciples. We're supposed to baptize people, see people come into God's community, but we're also called to make disciples, to make servants of God. And one of the things we found at Blast that's been amazing is some of our best people at...
Stop. Blast. What's Blast?
That's our youth ministry. Our youth ministry is
Thanks.
Blast. Well, one of the things that we've really found is some of our best people at reaching the community, the best people at doing outreach and doing ministry have been the new believers, the people that have come in. So there's that huge importance of getting people in and then turning them to discipleship. And one of the things, on the assimilation side of the page is realizing it's really easy to bring people into a church, okay? I guarantee you, okay, if I was given one thing, I could fill your sanctuary next Sunday. I could fill you to capacity, and all I would need is somebody to donate a brand new car, okay? This is a true story. When a church in my community did this, when I was in high school, they got a car dealer to donate a brand new Ford Mustang right off the factory line, and they did a big youth event, and everybody who came that night got a ticket, got to put it in the bucket, and they picked somebody out to win a car. You want to know how many kids they had that night? They had well over 1,000 kids, complete capacity, because there was a car on the line. It's easy to draw people in. We can draw people in with a car, with any sort of giveaway, but what does that do? And that doesn't do anything. The assimilation side of the page is getting people in, connecting them to God, connecting them to the church, connecting them to the individuals so that they come back and they start growing into those disciples that start doing ministry as well. You're not really doing evangelism, you're not really doing outreach until you're really connecting the people to God, to the church, and then equipping them in a way that they're going out. And that's what you see in the book of Acts, right? You look in Acts chapter 2, this group of people, it starts with 70 and it grows to about 150 in the upper room in Acts chapter 1. And then all of a sudden, in one day, Peter gives a sermon that I wish I could give, and he reaches 5,000 people. And what do they have to do? They have to assimilate them. They live in common, and they eat together, and they share together, and they disciple one another, and they become one community. And that's a big part of what it's got to be all about if you're going to effectively reach people, sustain them, and turn them into disciples.
Okay, thank you. Speaking of sermons, do you preach? Do you like it? What do people say about your preaching?
I love to preach, and our youth ministry maybe is a little different than what you're used to youth ministries being. I flat out basically give messages in youth group every week, so I'm, in my mind, preaching a couple of times a week already. I preach very regularly in our congregation, get the opportunity to go out and speak at some youth events and conferences and things like that as well. So I love to preach. I feel that that's a gift that God has given me, and to make it real. I'm a very Bible-centered preacher because that's what preaching is about, is making the Bible come alive. But also making it practical and making the Bible accessible to people and saying, this is God's word, this is what it says, but not only what it says thousands of years ago, what it says to us today and what we need to be doing to really respond to what God is challenging us to do.
So let's talk a little bit about, as we've talked about this position, there have been some questions about the job description. Being a little broad, not always real specific as to tasks that maybe that this person would do. Can you expand on why you see that as a benefit and how you would see yourself in this job and with this job description?
One of the benefits of it being a little looser of a job description is we need to realize when you're talking about outreach and evangelism and getting into the community, what works and doesn't work is like changing daily. An event that works in 2012 may not work in 2013. A need that you're meeting in 2013 and is drawing people in and giving you a chance to present the gospel to them, that need might not be there in 2014. And so if you have kind of the typical church job description, and I have that right now, I have a 2-page, size like 4 font, get out the magnifying glass, list of duties, all right? That is my job description. And what we've found is some of that becomes, wow, that's not really relevant anymore, but it's in the job description, so we better do it because ministry changes and what the needs are change. What we'd be here to do is to reach out, to bring people in, and to get them to the place of service. That's what it's all about. And then that's what we'd be committed to do. There's a lot of things I could be doing with my life. I could be president of the United States, okay? There's a lot of things that I could be doing. If I were to come here, I would be coming here for one reason only, and that's because I feel like God is moving me to use me to reach this community. And that would be my promise to all of you, is if I were to come and be here, that's what it would be all about. And it may not always make sense what we're doing, and it might be, I wish he had more of a job description, but what you have to know is that's what my heart is beating for, and that's what it's all about for me, and that's what I'll be living for. That's what I'll be doing. And it might look like that checklist that a lot of us have with jobs, but it will be beating in here, and ministry will be going on, and that's what it will really be all about.
I just have one other question, and then I'm going to open it up a little bit. I think we have a little more time. And maybe you've already answered this, but what is your favorite thing to do in ministry? And I'm going to ask you the same question, okay? So what's your favorite thing to do in ministry and why?
I might give 2 answers because I feel like the first one is like saying Jesus in a children's sermon. But I mean, honestly, it's seeing lives changed. It's getting, placed by God in a situation where you get to see somebody make a commitment to Christ, to see that look in their eyes that they know that all was lost, but all now is found. I mean, what greater privilege do we have as Christians than to sit with that and to be in God's presence as we know God's Spirit is coming inside of a person and changing them from the inside out to be His creation, to be His masterpiece. I mean, sitting with that, it might be the Jesus answer, but I mean, that's amazing. And I think the other part of it is helping to see people grasp ministry, to see people who, I call them rear end sitters. They're really good at this, okay? This is like the foremost position of a churchman, sitting in a pew, sitting in a seat. But to see people move from that and to help them move from that to being up and to serving and to doing ministry, that's a really amazing thing to get to be a part of.
Andrea.
Even though I teach high schoolers and I do love that age, I think one of the parts of ministry that I love the most is helping with Vacation Bible School during the summer. I've taught the 3 to 5-year-olds the last couple of years, and we're actually in the rotation basis is what we do. And I love the enthusiasm with them, and I love working with them, and I love all that Vacation Bible School can open the eyes for kids. So that's probably my favorite ministry.
By the way, the minute she said VBS, I could see Melissa looking in here with this just gleam in her eyes.
Would you like to open it up to a couple questions? All right. Maybe Don, you don't have a microphone. Do we have a roving? That would be great. That would be great. A roving microphone. She has many skills.
First question is, do you think you could give up on the Packers?
No.
Here's my question. Tell us about a time where a piece of your vision didn't work the way that you thought it would, and what you learned from that.
We've had a little bit of that this year. We're at a program we call Vision 2012. And we actually started in 2011 in our ministry to kind of re-get us around our purposes of ministry. BLAST stands for 5 things that we want to do in ministry: believing, which is evangelism; loving, which is fellowship; adoring, which is worship; serving, which is serving in mission, and teaching, which is discipleship. And we launched this in a big way and did a lot of big things with it. And one of our real ideas was, I think we wrongly thought that, you know, our leadership, our lay leadership could pick a lot of this up without us putting very much into them. And that was a very flawed theory. And so what we really learned out of it is, you know, it's one thing to cast the vision, and it's one thing to have the idea, but if we're going to do things in a big way, we've got to put the time in to equip people and to help them catch the vision. You know, I can sit up here and give you any vision, you know, I want, you know, that we're going to all be Packer fans by the end of the year, which is a pretty good vision, but especially for Don. He might be our tough one to convert on that, but you know, we can cast a vision, but if we're not helping the people to understand it, this is our vision for 2012 church, and this is why, and this is what the Bible says about it, and this is how God is moving, and this is our evidence for what we need to do it. And so we did have to kind of step back and do some new things, and you know, after months of not really being where we wanted to be, you know, reevaluate, re-equip, and we've seen some awesome things now come out of it, but we had to kind of reevaluate what we were doing.
Other questions? Raise your hand high so we can see if you have a question. Uh-oh.
I'm nervous he's
Sorry,
too shy with
Bryce.
uh-oh.
You know, this gentleman seems to have quite the reputation
Yes,
already.
he does.
You know, I just want to say that, yes, we are Packer backers here, and I think that's a great vision for the future. But I guess what I'd like to know from both of you is, what do you like to do in your off time? Non-church related, what do you like to do with your children? What do you enjoy?
Well, that's going to be a loaded question for me, because now I have to admit to even more of my following the Nebraska Cornhuskers football team, which is not going to equip me. If you weren't here in the first service, however, we kind of took a poll in the first service, and I said, what would you rather like, though? A Nebraska fan or another Michigan fan? And the first service had a pretty... the first service was pretty unanimous. They preferred this. So I love sports. I love following sports. I love being involved in sports. I help with our wrestling team in town. So I love that sort of stuff. I love to read. I love to watch TV. I get into all those nerdy cable shows like Pawn Stars and American Pickers, which and then it's the Iowa show too. So and getting to hang out with family and getting to do stuff with them and playing with my kids. Although I no longer can coach my son in wrestling because, well, and took it a little too far, and he kind of went to the playland at the mall one day and started walking up to girls and acting like he was going to hug them, but instead he put them in a bear hug, and then he threw them to the mat, and,
It was so
and then he pinned
embarrassing.
them,
So
and then he
embarrassing.
celebrated, and so coach of son is no longer one of my hobbies, apparently.
I love to read, and I love to play with the kids and travel, and just spend time with family and friends.
And she hates wrestling.
I do.
Any other questions? Oh, we've got one back here.
I heard you're kind of a music fan, and what your appreciation of music is.
I'm really into praise and worship music. Hillsong United is my favorite band. I actually got, there's excitement in the back there. I got to see Joel Houston and company in concert last year, which was pretty awesome for me. So yeah, I've been in praise and worship sort of music for a long time, and really follow that, and have a bunch of secular bands I like too. So yeah, I usually have my iPod, my iPad, my MacBook. That's my plug for the true computer company in the world. Thank you. We have some good people here. They dislike Michigan and they like Apple computers, so this is a good thing. So yeah, I love music, and I'm kind of eclectic in what I like too. So, but But I don't play guitar. I like to sing. I don't know that I sing well, but I like to sing loud. And it says make a loud and joyful noise, not a good noise. So
I think we'll wrap it up if there are one last chance, if anyone has thought of something else they want to ask. Oh, Ronnie.
I just wanted to ask you what you think of our present outreach program, our block parties and our passing out gifts at Christmas time, the Alpha program and stuff like that. Do you approve of that, or would you change it in certain ways, or what would you do?
You know, it's funny. When we first had a Skype interview, there was a question I asked that the answer really was going to be if I pursued this or not, and that was, you know, what does outreach look like to you? And if the answer was going to be this, you know, this kind of outdated idea of, well, we do a lot of mailings and we stand on street corners and then we hand out tracts. I was going to say, okay, that's good stuff, but what needs to, a big part of doing outreach is getting into the community and meeting needs. And so when I heard about things of, hey, you know, we've over the years found a lot of ways of how can we meet needs that exist in the community. We've done things like a block party. We've done things like provide Christmas presents. I thought, okay, this church gets it, that there's a very important element of sharing the gospel, and that comes, it's necessary, and it comes. But there's also that important element of showing love to the community and show that, hey, you know, Central Reformed, we're not just about Central Reformed, we're about you too. And if you have a need, we'd love to meet it. So that to me is a huge thing, that your church already gets that, hey, we want to be showing the love to our community, helping them. And that provides a great precursor to the gospel. You know, I've got on my arm here, Mark chapter 6:12, when Jesus sent out his disciples. That's what he sent them to do, to not only preach, but to meet those needs. It goes hand in hand. Alpha's a great thing, and it sounds like you're doing awesome things with it. And that provides some of that outreach and assimilation stuff too, it's helping people get the basics, but it's helping them get deeper and get to a healthy disciple level of faith. So those are things that would not be changing. In fact, they'd probably simply be expanding to do even more with them because they're being such a blessing. Let's see what the next step could be for those sort of things.
Okay, we're going to wrap up. I want to give everyone a few minutes if you want to just introduce yourselves to Andrea and Andy and their family. Thank you, Grandma and Grandpa, for helping out this morning. Wave your hand so everybody can see you back there. Welcome to Central Reform. Again, they'll be around during service. They're going to share a little bit more, I believe, and then after church, feel free to come down and introduce yourselves and make them feel welcome.
And thank you all so much for welcoming us so great this weekend. It's when you're coming into a strange community in a different church, it's just great to have so many people just showing you love. And it's been great to see the excitement that's here, the vision that you all have, the passion for ministry that exists here. Even though it is really fun to make fun of him, and I have enjoyed it greatly this weekend. You really have an amazing senior pastor, and it actually kind of breaks my heart to think I'm not going to have that much time with him if we were to come here. But it excites me just to be around him for a little bit and to keep growing and learning from him. He has a great vision. He's a great guy. It's been great to know him and Roxy and the rest of the committee too. They've been wonderful, and you can just tell that passion they have for God, and that's made it a fun weekend. Being in the interviews and all this stuff for 12 hours a day, it's not the most fun thing in the world, but when you have people who are on fire for Christ and really are beating, man, that's made it great. So thank you for having us, and blessings on everything that you guys are continuing to do. You're a great church. Keep it up.
Thank you.